Hello everyone, welcome to today's event, Visitor Hangout. So welcome to today's Hangout brought to you by Developer Stories, and here we get to learn and know the different journeys of developers from the seniors, and they shared their journeys. And today we are having Hannah Olukoye, who is an Android engineer at Andela, and under Andela she is working for different companies. And I've forgotten to introduce myself. I'm Kibedia Plus. and okay, so I was having someone as a co-host, but he has run away. So Hannah is an Android engineer at Andela. She's also a mentor, a technical writer, and she'll share more about herself. And so I have to apologize first for there was an error in the poster. For those who realized there was an error somewhere. So I'm apologizing for that. And Donald, you can introduce yourself, then you can go from there.
Hello, I'm Donald Kiplagat. I've been doing web dev since 2018. I'm a co-lead here at Developer Stories Africa. Today we have Hannah. So yeah, that's the introduction.
Okay, thanks, Donald. So Hannah, you can tell us who you are. Okay, so you will tell us who you are from, and then like when you started um, getting involved in tech, and then how the journey has been up to where you are now.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me today. Thanks for this opportunity just to share my story. Nice to meet you, Kibet and Donald. So yeah, I will just give a brief summary of my story and try to make it as brief as possible so that we can get some time for questions afterwards. Yeah, as you heard, my name is Hannah Olukoye. Currently working with Andela for a company called Acast. It's a podcast company. You can check out the website. It's a pretty cool company I joined. I've been there this is going to be my second month. And it's really interesting, like when you get to meet people working from various parts of the world and getting to just collaborate on one thing. It's really amazing and really motivating. Before I worked for a company called Macro Eyes, and as well, it was a remote company. I was working as a remote engineer and got to work with people from Africa, from Europe, and the United States as well. So that was really interesting. So I can go to the very beginning of my journey. Let's start with my primary school. So here in Kenya, when you do your lower level of studying, you go to primary school. It's 8 years, and for me, those 8 years, I wouldn't say I was a techie. At that point, I was just going through school and enjoying the usual subjects, math, science, and yeah, definitely I was leaning more into the sciences. So I'd say my passion started then. And then in high school, that's when I got to do computer studies as my extra studies. Yeah, that's how it was called at that point. And so all along, I knew that I would enjoy doing computer studies, but there's a plot twist. In the end to my undergrad, I ended up choosing something that was more of maths and accounts. I did actuarial science. So that was really interesting as well because I was also exploring my other analytical side of, um, yeah, I would say my analytical side of me. But I think through the 4 years when I was in undergrad, I still found myself enjoying the programming classes. So we had programming courses where we'd either build websites, we'd also do just statistical programming. And for me, those were my favorite kind of classes. And so I knew as soon as I graduated that I wanted to do programming. And try out my career in that. So it wasn't just like a flip of a switch. Like I didn't just finish and then start coding. So I finished, did my internship in an actuarial firm, and I just got to explore what I'd been learning in my undergrad. So that was more of like another way of affirming that I wasn't really enjoying it. And so that's the point where I just signed up for courses to do programming. So the first ones were either I would go for evening classes or Saturday classes. Then I found remote classes, so that was really working for me. Ended up signing up for courses on Udacity, on edX, and that's how I slowly grew my technical skills. So it was a lot of self-taught and just pushing myself, getting to meet people who are are experienced in coding. And at that point I wouldn't say I was more of a back end or front end. I was just learning how to code. Like that was it. So that's I've covered my early career. Like that was how I started off. So my first ever job as a technical person, I worked as a web developer. So that was, I think every time I say this story, I just laugh because that was interesting. When I went for that interview, I showed up at my potential employer's office with my laptop, showed her this is the website I'm working on my side project. I opened my local machine, showed her the back end of a WordPress site I was working on, and showed her what it looks like on the front end. And she believed me, and that's how I got the job. So it was really interesting, and it was really life-changing at that point, because I realized that my skills can actually be of use, and I can like make money out of it. So the next job I got was now at a more fintech company, and I was working as a deployment engineer. So at that point, I was now thrown into the deep end of coding. I met people who are really skilled, people who've studied computer science, people who like have in-depth knowledge of how to code. And that at that point I didn't feel like I was inferior. I felt more challenged, and I felt like I was growing in the team. So whenever I would get stuck, whenever I'd need help, I'd reach out, and people are always willing to show me. So that's one thing I've learned. Like when you're working, always reach out. No one is going to like bash you for not knowing. You rather ask than just make mistakes. So it was really nice to. I remember that's the team. I worked there for around 3 years. That team has built me over the years, and we're still friends up to now. I think for me, just getting to understand that it's not about being good at how you code, it's how you also communicate when you're in a team, and that's what will really push you. So at that point, when I was working as a deployment engineer, is when I got to understand, oh, you can be a backend engineer, you can be a front end, you can do mobile, you can do networking. I remember I have a friend who I always reach out to whenever I have networking issues, because like for him that was like a walking up in the park. For me, I still struggle up to today. So at that point is when I made the decision to now major into mobile development, and that's why right now I'm really passionate about Android engineering. It took a while. It's still even taking a while up to now, but that's the point where I just signed up for a diploma in Android. Got to learn how just to develop a simple mobile application. I have a few applications on Google Play Store. If you're interested, you can check them out. Some of them were built with Eclipse. That's what the IDE that was there before Android Studio. So I had just to keep updating them, and then also just also learning how to put in best practices over the years that have been introduced in the developer field. So that's my journey in summary. So up to now, I'm still doing Android development. I don't know if I want to stop anytime soon, but it's been really interesting. Every day, Google releases stuff, and you're like, okay, now I have to learn how to do this again. But I wouldn't say I'm bored of it yet. It's really interesting. I enjoy it every day. So when I'm not coding, I like to bake. I like to try out recipes online. So that's something I've got to experience, especially during this COVID time. Being indoors, I've tried out really a lot of recipes and things that I wouldn't have normally eaten. And then I'm also passionate about music, and I play drums once in a while, though it's been a really long while. Yeah, that's a brief intro. It took a whole 10 minutes.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But so I wanted to ask, since from you are from a math background, so I'm not sure if there was data science back then, because you'll find most people from math background moving to data science, but for you went to web development, then Android. You never went to data science.
Yeah, actually, I don't think I remember if there was data science at that point, but I think the fact that in school, in undergrad, I was learning how to do statistical programming, it would have made sense for me to do machine learning stuff at that point. Like, yeah, going to Python. And but at that point, again, because I didn't have any guidance, I didn't have any mentorship, I was just trying out whatever whatever I would find easiest to reach out to. That's how I ended up into deployments, web, and then mobile. But yeah, definitely at that point, I don't think data science was as big as it is now.
Okay. So I have a question here, and I think this mostly affects a lot of people. So what are the obstacles you faced and when learning and when growing in your journey as a developer up to where you are now, and how you tackled them?
Okay.
Challenges you faced.
Yeah, so challenges I faced. If you follow me on Twitter, you know I've talked about this on the Twitter spaces. There's definitely the imposter syndrome, and especially for someone who's not come from a computer science background, it's even more because if and then also being a woman, it's now double. So imposter syndrome just is one major challenge I think everyone would experience in doesn't matter which field you are in. You just end up feeling like you're not good enough. You feel like you're not at the level that you want to be at. So you end up feeling like it's not worth um, even building yourself. So one way I've been able to overcome that challenge of imposter syndrome is um, just being connected in the developer community. That has been really helpful to me. Finding mentors who are people who've been in this industry for more years than I have, and people who are willing to just teach me the ropes. Because there are definitely mistakes that you can avoid by just listening to someone's story, or even just reaching out to someone and asking them advice on how to go about things. And for imposter syndrome, as a person as well, you also need to know what's the trigger. So for me, I'd say one trigger would be, let's say, if I get a task in a field that I haven't even read about. For example, one of the projects I was working on recently was on machine learning. So machine learning is something I have not even like thought about. But the fact that I was in a team where everyone was like, no, we are all learning this together. It's okay to make mistakes. So you research, let's try out whatever you research, and then you see how it goes. So you get confidence by just also being able to be willing to try out stuff. So another trigger I remember would most people would face is, let's say if you're in a team and let's say if you're a lady, you're the only lady in the team and everyone else is a male person. You end up feeling like they won't take me seriously, or for example, either you have to work extra hard to just prove that you're good at it. So if you know your trigger, then you're able to overcome your trigger specific to what it is. Imposter syndrome is actually like quite wide. I got to learn about it a few months ago, like in depth. So yeah, definitely just read about how to overcome your triggers and reach out. I think reaching out always helps because someone else has been in the same situation, and then they can always help you how to navigate out of it. Yeah.
Okay, that's nice. So Another question is, okay, could have asked basic skills for a junior. So let me ask for an Android junior. Yeah, for an Android junior developer role. Yeah, so what should a person know to be considered for a junior role?
Okay, so junior role actually depends in the company that you're applying for. Take this example: if you're applying for a junior role in a company like, okay, I didn't want to use Google, a company like SoundCloud, and then you're applying for a junior role in a company that is basically maybe a startup that they're just forming the team. They have uh, an app that they want to try out in the market. So junior role also just depends on the type of company you're applying to. For example, so a company like SoundCloud has been there for years, and so when you're joining in as a junior, you'll be joining in a level where the code base has already been written, things are already running, systems are set up, and you're joining in just to maybe, for example, support the team, learn the ropes of how the app is running. But when you're joining in a startup, you're joining in a capacity where you have to learn how to set up things in following the best practices in the right way, getting to collaborate with now other people, other engineers within the team, for example. So it's actually different. So I would say if you're applying to a big company, a company that has been there for a while, have your have your skills at a more experienced level. That's what I would say, because they expect you to understand the code in a deeper level. But if you're applying into a more startup company, just know that they'll be able to give you room to learn, and yeah, and the learning curve is also just not as steep. Yeah, so I would say I don't think I have like certain topics that a junior developer should know, but just look at the company and yeah, and the stack that they want to they're requiring in that role. Yeah.
Okay, so you've been a mentor for, for quite some time. So you have mentored different people. Yeah, so I want you to please some of the mistakes mentees make when being mentored. Yeah.
I actually wrote us a post about this, about mentorship. So I have been mentored, I have been a mentor, and I think in those different scenarios, I've learned a lot over the years. I think what mentees need to realize, even me included, is that your mentor is giving you time out of their busy schedule. Like it's not something that they had said, oh, today I'll slot this section, but they're actually going out of their way. So make it easy for them to reach out to you, make it easy for them to schedule meetings with you. If you make it, like I experienced this once, like if you make it difficult for me to reach you, then I just move on to the next mentee, because someone else is now like hungry for my attention, someone else is willing to go the extra mile, yet you as the one who's delaying and not maybe showing up, you're making it difficult for me as a mentor to reach out and help. I think another thing as a mentee is also just know what exactly you want to achieve out of the mentorship. Uh, in the past mentorship, the most recent mentorship program I joined, I liked how they had a schedule of things that you need to cover with your mentor. So when we'd have the meetings, the mentee would know what we're covering today or what we're discussing, and then prepare in advance. You can show up for the mentorship and just expect the the mentor to like know what you're thinking or know what you want from them. I think it's really good to just prepare in advance, have the questions in advance, and then know how to apply those questions, and then also just take notes. It's really good to know that your mentee is listening and being able to apply what you've talked about. And also, for one thing, for me, when I look for a mentor, I look for someone uh, who's yes definitely experienced in the field, but another thing is that they're willing to share. Some people are not willing to share, so don't expect everyone that you're reaching out to is willing and will make time. So that's the first thing. Like when you're reaching out, just ask them, are you able to make time for me? Are you able to just have this few number of sessions with me? Yeah. I think the rest are on my article on Medium.
Okay, so I'll check that. For those who want to check, there's a link on the description from the blog. You can check the articles for Android and that one for poster syndrome. So I have a question here. How do you remain relevant in the tech field, especially how things are changing so fast? You sleep and tomorrow morning you find something is duplicated.
Yep, I've experienced that. I remember one of the libraries I used for one of my apps. I was really excited about using it. So that whole year, I was like, okay, this year I'm using this. I'm even refactoring my code. I did all that only for it the next month to be deprecated. And I was like, really? Like after all that hard work, and even like reading documentation about it and everything. So yeah, for me, one way I remain relevant is by joining developer communities. I'm part of DroidCon and Android 254. Yeah, here in Kenya. I don't think I'm in any. Okay, I'm in the Google, yeah, the wide one, but I don't think I'm in any other global sort of community. Oh yes, I'm in She Code Africa, which is mostly for women developers across Africa. With a large number of people from Lagos, which is really interesting because you get to meet people from other parts of Africa, and it's really nice. I think that's one way to just remain relevant because there's always webinars being set up. There's always workshops being set up. There's always things like conferences, and then you get like sort of not first priority, but you get the information first. And I've learned that being in the developer community has also kept me up to tools with what's happening. Because sometimes, yeah, you can follow a certain page on Twitter or online, but by the time the news gets to you, it may be a week or a day. But when you're in the developer community, there's always someone sharing links. There's someone just having a discussion about stuff, and you get to grow. And don't feel shy even if you're joining a group and you're the new person. It's I think what I've learned is like just join into the conversations, even if you won't contribute at that point. There's a next time when there'll be a contribution and there'll be a discussion and you'll be able to contribute. So for me, developer communities and definitely reading a lot of articles online. I saw you wrote in my bio, I'm a tech writer. I wouldn't classify myself as one, but I think writing technical articles and reading technical articles has been really one way to grow and one way to just be up to date.
So I have a question. So what is the value of, let's say, a master's degree? What value does it have in the industry today?
I'm glad you asked that. I'm doing my master's right now. So a master's degree, for me personally, I think it's a personal decision actually. Personally, why I chose to do my master's degree and it's in IT, it's because I came from a background where I was doing a lot of math, and I felt like I needed to be able to understand IT in a more general kind of perspective. And for me, my master's has really made sense to me. I think I wouldn't say my master's is a waste of time. So for other people, like I've realized for some of my classmates who came from doing computer science or just IT, and then they're doing the same masters with me, they get bored along the way. I think because the way you meant, like they don't see the value of it in the market. They don't see how it will bring value to them. So I think for when you're doing your masters, I did my undergrad and graduated in 2012, and I started my master's degree in 2018. 18. So you can see I waited like 6 years to really decide on what masters I want to do. So it depends on you as a person. For master's degree, I don't want to start saying this one is better than this, but you need to understand why you're doing your master's degree. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
And why did you decide to go for your master's degree? Why did it make sense to you?
So that's what I was trying to explain. Sorry, there's an echo. My master's degree was mostly to boost my already acquired skills in programming, right? So I came from a background where I didn't do anything in IT. Like I was doing a lot of math, statistics, and probability stuff. So when I go into the market and I'm applying for jobs, maybe as a senior engineer or an engineering manager, managerial sort of roles, I get to show my master's degree as a backup. Because yeah, definitely when you go into either parastatals or government companies or other NGOs, your master's degree really counts. Yeah, they think they just want to see that you're a credible person. I wouldn't know why else they look at it, but it's something that is marketable when you're looking into managerial kind of roles. Yeah. And that's why I want to head to.
And I don't know if you asked this, but since you're mentoring at Akira Chicks, I wanted to ask, what tips would you give to other mentors like me in terms of, how you go about mentoring?
Okay, so as a mentor, one thing I've learned from my recent mentorship is that you also need to have a plan of how you're going through the mentorship program. So for me, the plan was already drawn out for me. It was a 3 months program, and we had a schedule of activities that we needed to discuss every week. So I think I'll carry this forward, like in my next mentorship, so that when I'm meeting my mentee, we're not just talking and catching up and just finding out where they are. So there's a topic like for each week, and then there's sort of an assignment that you're giving them. And then one thing to start off, even the first meeting, is have goals that the mentee is that the mentee wants to achieve. So it shouldn't come from you as a mentor, it should come from them. And also that way it doesn't feel forced upon them. For example, if the mentee comes to you and says, I want to grow as a web developer, so you ask them, how do we break this down? The first step, how would you like to achieve this goal of being a web developer? First off, do you want to do any courses, for example? If yes, how long do you want the courses to be? Put timelines to every goal, every task. That way you can be able to track the changes or even the progress. And then you can also see where they're getting blocked or where they're getting challenged. Because I think from my previous mentorships, we used to just sit, talk, and I don't think we wrote any notes. We just, ask, how are you doing? Where would you want to be in the next week? Or like it was just open ended. So when you have a sort of structure that you're following, it helps you as a mentor and as well as a mentee. They know what to work on. They know what to ask even the next meeting. Yeah, and what to expect.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear. If do you have any other questions, Theo?
Okay, so so most of the people are being affected by burnout. So I'm not sure if you've ever been burnt out, or
Yeah.
and how you
I,
tackled it? Yeah, I think
yeah.
how you tackled it is the main part. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand your question. I think it's just part of life. Everyone has to go through burnout because at some point when you're working and even when you're in school, you feel like you can still keep working at the same pace, but that doesn't happen. The body has a way of just either slowly shutting down or just either you find you you're just slowing down in how you're doing your deliverables or even just working on tasks. So one way to overcome burnout, one thing I always like personally do is to allocate time when rest time. Like for example, if I know in the week I have there are 5 days. Out of those 5 days, there's a day of rest time where it's like downtime. So it doesn't mean that I don't go to work or I don't work, but there's a day when I'll cut off like the vigorous um, the vigorous tasks that I'm doing. Let's say if it's early morning or in the afternoon, it depends. So at that point, I would either do a power walk, a short workout, or read a book. Just do something that is not related to work, so that your mind can also rest. I think one thing as a developer you get to realize is that you want to solve, for example, a bug. If you're fixing a bug, the thought of you not fixing it just goes with you. Even when you're going to sleep, you just feel like, no, how what am I not seeing? What am I missing? And so because of that, you end up just overworking yourself, sleeping late, waking up early, and then that's on repeat. So you get to a point in the week and you're just like your mind has shut down completely. So I think one thing that you need to know is just respect your body, set just allocate those rest times. Everyone does that. Even the CEOs that you see, they have a day when they do total absolutely nothing. And it's not that you're becoming lazy, but it's just that your body needs to recharge physically. So whatever you do, if it's taking a nap or um, going for a walk or something, just make sure you have that time to rest. And also, like in terms of your calendar, you can also block out meetings so that people don't send meeting requests at that time when you want to take a rest. Otherwise, you'll end up feeling like you don't have time to take that rest, yet it's you who needs to take that actual rest. So burnout is real. Do everything you can to avoid it. Take leave. Actually, taking leave from work is okay. I think that's one thing I had to learn. It's actually in your calendar, in your contract for a reason. So take leave as much as you can. Yeah, it's okay. Sorry, on mute.
I think we have some questions in the chat, or at least one question. So question asks, for portfolio projects, what do tech recruiters look at and see value in? Are there any examples one can target to display the requirements needed?
Yes, definitely. So I'm a big fan of telling people to have their portfolio like to have a portfolio online, even if it's not a paid domain. It can be the free ones. Just have your work together. And why do I say this? One reason is because there are times when you're sending your CV to the recruiter and they don't really want to read that whole CV. They just want to see a snapshot of what have you done, what can you do, and how can you fit into their company. So when you have your portfolio, all this is like just upfront. Like on your homepage, I have worked on these apps, I have worked on these websites, I have skill set in this language. Like you have to you give them that glimpse of a snapshot of what you can do at a go. So I think portfolios are really helpful. And then don't put in projects that maybe have been outdated or the links are broken, that really discourages the recruiter or whoever is looking out at your portfolio, because they feel like you didn't maintain your site, you're not putting it up to, you're not keeping it up to date. And just make sure it's you're highlighting the projects that you're really proud of, so that when you're asked to talk about them, you can list out all the things you're proud of in those projects. So that's one thing I would really advise you. Portfolios are worth having. Yeah.
We have another question asking, when do I need to consider what do I need? I think it's supposed to be, what do I need to consider when selecting a mentor?
I just said first off, you need to know, are they willing to mentor? Some people are not willing to share. Some people don't have that time. As much as, yes, they have that experience, they won't be able to be your mentor. So first find out. I think one way, there's no harm in asking. Ask them, are you willing to mentor? Are you willing to make time for me? Then now from there, you can be able to understand what can I get from this mentor? And there's no harm by having more than one mentor. You can have one mentor who's maybe skilled in mobile and another mentor who's skilled in communications, because you have to be an all-rounded person and you can't get all the skills, for example, in one person. So it's good to have several mentors. And I don't think age matters. It's all about the experience and if they're willing to make time for you. Yeah.
And then you have another question asking for, the range of salaries at Andela. I don't know if we can reveal that.
I'm very sorry that I'm not privy to that. Every engineer earns at we call them engineer levels, and I don't know what engineer levels the ranges are at, so that's not information that I have. Yeah. I think someone asked me to share my LinkedIn profile. Okay, it's there.
Okay, I think I've shared the link for the LinkedIn profile.
Okay.
Yeah, so having talked about mentorship, so are you free to mentor anyone who wants to reach out for mentorship?
I encourage anyone who wants mentorship to reach out, but I don't promise. But so the thing with what I do is, because I'm in a developer community, I'll know who to tell you to ask. Like, for example, you're asking me and you're mostly into backend or you're mostly into machine learning. I know who will be the right person to mentor you. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I would direct you to the right person in case I'm not the one who's able to. That's the only disclaimer.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Even pointing out someone is also,
Yeah.
that helps a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a question here. For someone starting out, is it better to be self-taught or go through formal training?
I would say there's an advantage in doing both. So I don't want to shame people who are self-taught, and I don't want to shame people who are formal, like trained formally. Like that means they've gone to school, studied computer science and everything. So the strength in each is that you're still marketable. I think that's one thing. So as a self-taught person, don't think you're at a less advantage. And for someone who's formally trained, don't think that you're wasting your time. I think both of you would be still marketable. The thing is, you can still learn from each other. And one thing I've come to experience as a mobile developer is that you keep learning every day. You keep learning. So there's no point you'll say, I finished my course and that's it. You'll have to keep learning new ways of doing stuff. So you have to also have that mindset of I'm always a student. I'm always going to be learning. I'm always going to be taking up courses. So yeah, self-taught means you're just taking up courses on your own. So I wouldn't say there's much of a difference with those who are formally trained. and then formally trained, you're now having the guidance of maybe, for example, a lecturer, but that doesn't last a lifetime. At some point, you finish your course, and then you still have to now learn stuff on your own. Yeah, I wouldn't share either.
So, so I think we can agree that we are all self-taught. Because,
Yeah, in the end, it feels like
yeah, by then you are learning on your own. There is
yeah.
nobody to come and hold your hand. Yeah. So there is a question by Brains. Is asking, at what point do you need to consider to take a step back and revamp your resume after not hearing back, maybe from recruiters?
At the point where you've asked yourself that question, that is the very point you should take a step back, because I started applying for uh, new jobs, I think from January. I was just like exploring, and that was quite draining. So I feel like at the point where you feel like, no, my CV doesn't make sense, that's the point to revamp. Don't wait for it. No one will come and tell you, oh, your CV doesn't make sense. But one thing I'm encouraging people, like if you're on this call and you need help revamping your CV, reach out to me. I'd be willing to help. Like you just need that other second pair of eyes to read through your CV and see what have you missed out, how have you put out your layout. People actually charge for these services, but I'm not charging because I'm not a professional. You can also choose to go that route where you get a professional to revamp your CV and your LinkedIn profile. Yeah, that's one way to go about it. But also don't be discouraged if still that doesn't work. I revamped my CV, I think, over, I lost count. Yeah, but just have, so what I was advised is have one main CV where you have every single thing. Then now when you're applying for a certain job, use that your one CV as a template to now apply for that specific one job. So that really helped. I think one other thing with as a developer, you want to just use one CV and apply for all kinds of jobs. If it's a full stack, if it's a web dev, you still use the same CV, and you see that doesn't cut out because they're looking for key points that are in your CV that will match that actual role. So your CV really matters in how you put the wording, how you put the layout. So yeah, reach out. Don't be discouraged. I went through the same. Yeah.
So I have a question. Now, when you're starting out with coding and all that, you have to like focus on one thing. Now, let's say I'm a developer, and I want to do maybe and I want to choose between maybe Android
Hello, Donald. Donald, I think we lost.
Oh yeah. So I was asking, if I'm gonna choose a stack, do I generalize or do I specialize? What do I do?
If you're starting out,
Yes, if I'm starting out, I have the choice of pursuing Android. I have also the choice of pursuing web development or some other, maybe cybersecurity, maybe IoT. What would you advise?
so what I would advise, first of all, is that you need to understand software development is quite wide, like software engineering. There are so many branches out there, right? Like you've listed a few of them. And so there's no point where you'll be able to take all those courses at a go. So you need also to be patient with yourself, and you need to also have a sort of idea of where you want to end up. So, for example, when I started off as a web developer, at that point, I didn't know that I would end up being a mobile developer. I just wanted to learn how to code, and at that point, what was available to me was web development. So, if you have a few that are available to you, pick one. It's okay to pick it, and halfway through, if you see like that you really don't fit in, you can drop it off and start something else. So you need to be patient with yourself, and you can't be an expert overnight. So at the same time, that's why it's good to have mentors. Mentors will be able to guide you on what choice to start off with. Once they hear your story or hear some of the things you've worked on or your experience, that's a good way to even like make that decision. Because when you're alone, like for example, I was alone at that point, I just went with what was there. I don't regret that decision, but I feel like what if I had maybe someone who's a mobile engineer at that point talking to me about what mobile development involves, I would have easily switched into that. So I think, yeah, just be patient with yourself. It takes time, and yeah, it's okay to pick another route if one doesn't work out for you. I think the main issue here people think of is which one pays more. So that's not a good way to think about it. Just know what are you good at, what can you excel at as a person. Yeah.
That's very good. That's a good answer. Mm, I think if Theo can continue.
Okay, so there are no more questions from the audience side, and for me, I don't see any more questions unless you give us a brief overview of how the tech industry will be in the next 5 years in Kenya.
I
Or,
don't know how
I
to
don't know
answer
how to
that question.
answer that question. Or just what your opinion of it is. How do you think the maybe the mobile industry will continue?
So mobile specifically, uh, that's a hard question to ask. I don't know how to forecast how things
How
are,
things are,
especially
especially
with how Google
with how
keeps
Google
changing
keeps
stuff
changing
and
stuff and
introducing new
introducing
things.
new things.
But what I definitely foresee is that things will be a lot of development work will be automated. So one thing I can advise engineers is don't stick to just one method of coding. I think if there's a framework coming out, just understand how that framework works. Then mean you have to switch to that. But you never know, because in a short time, I remember people who used to do HTML and just develop websites from CSS and HTML. If they stuck to that, then they would be out of jobs, because frameworks came, new languages came that took over how to do that, to that automated that whole process of writing with HTML and CSS. So I think you should be aware of that as an engineer. Just think out of the box of how will I bring value to the team, or how will I bring value in my skills if I learn this other framework. So yeah, that's one thing I can advise.
Then you have Brains asking a question. Have you ever gone through a tough period in your development journey, and how did you handle it?
I'd say the tough period was when I was consulting on my own, when I wasn't like working specifically for any company. So I would get requests from clients, people who'd get my portfolio by referral or word of mouth. So that was a tough period because I learned that consulting is not easy. It's not as easy as they make it look. Consulting means that you're the finance person, you're the HR, you're the uh, marketer, you're the software engineer, you're the QA, you're the UX designer, like you're the everything. So you end up feeling like you're dropping the ball in one of those fields. And especially like if you're someone who's not used to handling a lot of finances or even knowing how to market yourself, you find that you don't get a lot of clients. So for me, my main challenge was that I didn't know how to market myself. I was mostly waiting for people to come and reach out to me and ask me for work, and ask me to do work for them. So I learned out of that experience that that's why I'm really a big fan of having your portfolio out there, and then also just sharing it widely to your network circles. Another thing I was able to do was I learned how to bargain better. I think that's something you're not taught in school, how to charge for your services. Sometimes it gets hard because you're starting to wonder, am I overcharging? Am I undercharging? And how I got to navigate this was by being in the developer communities again, because that way you get to hear how people charge, how people who are more experienced charge their charge their clients, or even how they write up proposals. So that's really one way that really helped me and motivated me. And it was a tough period, but I got out of it. And right now, if I'm to go back to it, I'll be stronger. I won't be as discouraged as I was back then. Yeah.
That's inspirational indeed. That's very good. Um, I think we can. I want to thank you on behalf of Developer Stories Africa, for taking your time out and attending and showing up for this event. Um, I think we will be concluding at this point.
Yeah, so before you finish, you can give like advices to juniors, those who are starting out, like 3 advices or any number.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I had written down something like a parting shot. Just yeah, for anyone starting out, for anyone looking to get motivated, ask yourself these 3 things: why do I do it? What exactly am I doing? And why does it matter? So if you can answer those 3 questions, then yeah, you're on the right path, because there's no point of doing anything at all if it doesn't matter, and if you don't know why you're doing it. Yeah. Thanks for having me,
Okay.
Kibet and Donald. It was really
Yeah,
nice.
thanks for coming over. Okay, so for the audience, for those who want mentorship, you can reach out through her LinkedIn or Twitter. There's a link in the description. You can check out her articles for those who are interested in Android. And I think she also writes articles generally, not only Android.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for joining us, and bye.
Okay. Bye. Have
Bye,
a good
everyone.
evening.
Thank you again.